a video game where you get that extra life.
It's
Definitely
like
felt
do do
like
do
it was
do.
like a one up. It's like doo-doo. It's like we
Yeah,
got another one. And that one was fine. We definitely started that one off, I think, a little bit slower than the
yeah.
other,
We were
like
taking
getting
that one
back
extra
into.
chill,
Yeah.
and I started to feel because it had been 8 miles. We climbed 900 feet or something, 6 to 900
Yeah.
feet. I mean, that probably took us an hour and a half. My shoulders, like lactic was in there, and it was a little bit rusty, kind of getting started. Once we got out of there, we had the 4 mile run, so the little second kind of longer run with the hill climb there. That one, I think we were kind of we didn't hit that one as good. It was a little bit of a more technical terrain, and there wasn't as
Yeah.
many switchbacks. It wasn't as runnable. But once we got to the top of that, I think we kind of felt our spirits getting lifted. And I
Yeah,
think
we
that
could
at
we
that
could hear
point,
the finish line. Yeah, at that point, that Chipper, to your point, that's the point where I thought it's like, okay, this is certainly getting done.
welcome to the Low Tide Boys, a Swimrun podcast. I'm Chip.
And I'm Chris, and this episode 301 of the show. It's rock flute time again, people. Yeah.
Wait,
Fresh on the heels of
the flute's not out front. The flute's to the
it's
side,
like
right?
this. Yeah, it's usually to the
Okay.
side. Fresh on the heels of this past weekend's ÖTILLÖ Colorado race, we share a race report for the event. As our friend Phil quipped, the Swimrun Circus came to town. And it was a
Absolutely.
blast to see old friends and experience all the amazing random ass places that Swimrun can take you.
Yeah. What a weekend. And we were jet set, and it was a quick trip for us. A real in and out job Saturday and Sunday in Colorado, but we're really excited to recount it. And as sort of the race has processed a little bit more,
Yeah.
my thoughts have been changing and evolving a little bit. So,
Yeah, same. And we haven't really talked as much as we usually do because we sort of save it for these opportunities. I mean, we talked a little bit
yes.
on the traffic jam that we were stuck in heading back to the airport. But yeah, so we raced the World Series distance, which clocked in at 24-ish miles with 6-ish miles of swimming at around 5,000 feet of elevation to start. So this was like capital B beast. And, spoiler alert, we loved it. During the race, Chipper, I remember saying it's like, hey, we're always complaining we want our swim runs to be longer and harder, and it's like, well, we
We
seem to
got
have
what we
gotten what
asked
we asked
for.
for. But before we get into like breakdown, the vibes, all that stuff, Chipper, initial thoughts. How's the body? How's the mind?
Yeah, we'll start with the body. Actually, feeling not too bad. Did just a 20-minute runabout. Probably not advisable to do almost 6 hour endurance effort, then drive for an hour and a half, then sit on a plane for 2.5 hours, and drive another, and then to get home. But it was nice to get 6 or 7 hours of sleep in my own bed. And I think that did help. On top of a little bit of spoiler, I think a really strong fueling strategy, speaking for myself, I'm actually feeling pretty good from a body perspective. And then the mind, yeah, I mean, really, Chris, this again, I think this is a common thread we've been talking about all year. This year has been so unique for the Low Tide Boys as a racing team, as a swim run team this year. This was our first World Series Attila branded race together as the Low Tide Boys. I mean, yes, the mind is just feeling really, really happy that we got to go out there, and we did get what we asked for. We wanted a burly, beastie race, and we definitely got one. And so I'm feeling good mentally and physically. How about yourself? How's the body? How's the mind?
Yeah, I'll start with the mind. I'll echo a lot of that stuff. I feel like this has been like a real year of sort of growth and exploration and sort of in swim run world. And I felt really familiar to race with you again. I mean, I know we did Folsom, but that's like,
Yeah.
that's our own little personal dynasty apparently. But it was great. Like I felt like, our experience and our familiarity really shone in this race where communication was great, except for spoiler alert, Chipper didn't tell me that he took an amazing poop pre-race. That would have buoyed me. That would have buoyed my confidence knowing that Chipper took an amazing poop. Just as in Attila, the Swim World Championship, where I couldn't sleep for shit, but Chipper was snoring like chopping wood. I was at least grateful that my best buddy is getting a
At
good
least one
night's
of us
sleep.
is,
At least one
yes.
of us is sleeping. That's exactly the way I would have felt this past weekend, knowing that you took an excellent, legendary pre-race poop. Anyway, besides that little besides that little hiccup, I felt like our experience really shone through. I thought we came up with a good plan after the race. I was really grateful as to how just open our communication was, just being really honest about how hard everything was feeling, either of us, and just really coming at it from a perspective of, which has kind of been the thing since Chipper, basically since you got hurt last year, which is just like instead of being like, I don't want to be the weakest link, It really felt more about like, hey, this is what I have available to give to you, and I'm willing to give you all of it, but I'm just letting you know this is what I have right now, and hopefully that's enough, and it certainly was. So in that respect, it was just great to race with you again, and
Likewise.
it always brings us back to the love of the thing, and certainly just celebrating our 300th episode, thinking about our first swim run to now. It's kind of wild to think from the first one to the most current one week after another. It's a little bit of a mind fuck, if you will. Sorry for
Yeah,
swearing, people. Now, the body, that's another story.
it's a
I'm
little
pretty
bit
beat up.
banged
My
up.
left hip, my right quad, my right ankle, my shoulders for sure. My neck's a
Yeah.
little stiff. I definitely felt this has also been a theme for me this year, which is like a little bit undertrained. We'll talk about it later, but kind of punching above my weight class, and certainly that wouldn't have been possible without you being there. So yeah, I'm a little beat up. I was trying to go to the pool this morning. We're recording this on a Tuesday night. I was trying to go this morning to the pool. That was a big abort on that.
Not happening. Not hit that
Big abort.
snooze. The pool will always be
Yeah,
there.
like,
The
oh, it's
snooze
not
button.
happening,
Yeah,
not
I love
happening.
how you said that. I think a word that's been coming to me is like I felt very seasoned at that race. And I know that that's also translates to veteran and being older and been around the block a few times, but just kind of the way that we executed the race, and we'll get into what our plan was, but it felt like
Hmm.
we raced it really smart, or as I was saying, we just got to be less stupid about it. So race it less
Yep,
stupid, be
I
smart,
agree. We
high
were way
level of
less stupid than
communication.
usual.
Yes, mostly from my angle, I will
Oh no,
say
no,
I
I think it goes both
highly
ways.
list.
I mean, I was trying really hard to not do anything stupid to the point where I think in the beginning I was being ultra conservative because I was worried about stupid stuff happening later. And I think to your point, Chipper, I also felt like really seasoned and felt like the way we managed a case of first impression, which was this race, we obviously studied it the night before, listened to the race briefing from Lars and Aaron. It was an awesome race from the race director side. No hiccups,
Absolutely.
tons of volunteers, great experience. Everything was awesome in that respect. You'll be hearing more about this later. But yeah, I felt like our approach to this one, dare I say, it was probably the most pro that we've taken a race. And maybe one thought for me, I have this question for you, Chipper. I think this was a race where there was a little bit of fear in terms of like, oh, it's at elevation. Oh, there's all this stuff happening. There's these super long swims, sort of demanded respect. And I think we, sort of rose to such as it was, like we rose to the occasion for what challenges we thought we were going to be presented with.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, certainly the elevation and being at altitude was a total unknown for both of us. Chris, I know you personally have struggled at certain elevations as well in some of your trail runs. So that
Yeah.
was probably in the back of your head. I know I've done some races at elevation. I do remember it's just like you got someone like a big belt strapped across your chest and you can't quite get
Yeah.
100% of your breath in, and it's maybe
Hmm.
70, 80% kind of feeling, which
I
isn't
mean,
great.
I was certainly worried about that, Chipper. For folks who listen to the show, maybe you don't listen to it. Last year, my A race was this race called the Rut, which happens in Big Sky, Montana. The race starts at 7,500 feet. I've done Ironmans in Tahoe. I've done races at elevation. I did a Tahoe Rim Trail race at elevation. Never got altitude sickness. Got it at that race really badly to the point where I had to get closer to sea level and get oxygen, all sorts of stuff. So it was certainly in my mind. I was like, I'm back at elevation, and is this going to be sort of like a redux of what happened last year? For the most part, it was just like, well, that seemed like a fluke thing. So if it happens again, it's a fluke. And I was just trying to be super present and just kind of roll the dice, so to speak. But it certainly was in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, and again, certainly taking Mario Fraioli's advice and precision fuel and hydration, and Coach Liz, her and I had a debrief as well, but it's all the same advice. Hey, you're at elevation, be as fit as you can. Hey, there's not much we can do about that on Saturday when we're flying on the plane to Colorado, so that ship has sailed. More carbs, eat more. You got to eat more carbs. We can definitely control that.
Yeah, you're
One
running
of
hotter, higher heart rate just by being at elevation. You're going to burn more and you need to fuel more.
One of our favorite things about the ÖTILLÖ USA race circuit is they have precision fuel and hydration gels, which are our absolute favorite. So it's also so nice just going to a race and having literally your favorite gel be out there at every aid station. We definitely took
Dude,
advantage.
I seriously brought 5 gels with me because I knew they were going to be out there, and I just, used what was on the course. It's a beautiful thing to
And
basically
it
every
really
race feels
is.
like a home race when we're using the product that we've been training with.
Okay. So, yeah, let's dive into kind of the race report. And we got a little
Yeah.
itinerary to walk you.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. So first, getting to Fort Collins, where the race was held, pretty breezy. People are flying into Denver, flying to Cheyenne, and sort of, making their way to Fort Collins, which was about an hour and a half north of Denver from the airport, from the Denver airport. Um, Packet pickup was
easy.
great. Colorado vibes. It was at Runner's Roost. Our dear friends Sarah and Matt, who work there, were volunteers. They weren't able to race because Matt had shoulder surgery. So they were there to support, which was awesome to see them. I mean, they were taking a bunch of pictures of us. It really buoyed us to see them all along the course, on
Yeah.
Sunday, which was really fun. Packet
Team
pickup
Landshark
was the vibe. We ended up throwing a little pizza party at this place called Nick's, which is apparently the best place to get a burger. I found out after
at a pizza
ordering
place.
pizza. It's like someone should have told me this 20 minutes ago. But yeah, that was super fun, and a bunch of people came up and heard some really interesting stories on just like how people found Swimrun, and a lot of folks from Colorado. This was their first race. I don't know about you, Chipper, but it's like again, when the Swimrun circus comes to town, it's the same. It's the same experience, man. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, it was so awesome. Matt and Sarah, Team Landshark, every time we saw them was so amazing. And they're just two genuinely awesome people. And you can tell they really put their heart and soul into helping the Attila team. Obviously, they're kind of boots on the ground for course. That is their actual training kind of course where they go out and do their training runs and
Yeah.
swims. They were supporting volunteers there to every different aid station. So huge, huge thank you to them. They made it work at Runner's Roost, and Chris had to talk me down from buying about 3 or 4 pairs of shoes. So, it's probably a good thing I didn't do that. But yeah, the Knicks meetup, huge thanks to everyone that came out. And I know it felt kind of last minute from our end. We only got a couple days notice, and I'm like, maybe this is the time that nobody shows up at this thing, and it's just our friends and Andy and
Yeah.
Mara come through. But we had a good amount of people come, and a lot of first timers as well, which is really cool. Her name escapes me, but she has been listening to the podcast and heard about Swimrun well before 2020, has been listening since 2020, and this Attila, Colorado was her first swim run. So it was so cool that 5 years later, she finally made it happen in Fort Collins, and hopefully had a good time on the sprint course. But that was a really cool meetup and hangout. The voice of
Yeah.
swim run graced us with his presence. Lars came
Yeah.
through. Lars's brother came through as well. So it was a Phenonger family reunion of sorts. But yeah, I mean, just a really great way to kind of start the weekend. And hey, the Swarmer community never disappoints, and it's
Yeah.
always a good time when they show up. It was a little bit earlier, so we did get to go back to the hotel, and we were hanging out with Phil. So I think that helped. Kind of, we got to do a little bit extra planning, get the paddles, get our
Yep.
breakfast situated, stop by Whole
Hmm.
Foods, get the food and everything. And I think
Yeah,
from
and,
like a race
no, go ahead.
nerves situation, that was kind of good to have some just kind of chill time and just put our feet up, watch the baseball game, hit the Theragun, and yeah,
Yep.
just kind of relax.
Yeah, and that's a pretty good segue into the next thing we want to talk about, which is our training, such as it was for this race, and then how we kind of came up with our race plan for it. So, as we mentioned in the intro, I fully admit that I'm kind of undertrained for this level of activity. I certainly didn't feel like I was, going into what could have been a 6 hour race, feeling like I'm here for 6 hours. I probably felt like I was here for 4 hours, and then whatever happens after that happens. But yeah, my swim probably wasn't as built up as best as it could have been given just like the time limitations I have going right now. I know for me, I was like, I'm glad Chipper's been swimming and I'm glad Chipper's been running because it might have to be one of those days. But I also felt confident that like, hey, whatever needs to happen between the two of us to get from the start to the finish, we're going to do that and we're going to try to make a decision. So I think in terms of our race plan, Chipper, we definitely talked about pacing, how we were going to take the first couple swims and runs and swims,
Yep.
what we were thinking about fueling, kind of all the usual stuff. I don't know if there's anything in there that was sort of unique to this other than, what you already mentioned, which was, Mario and Liz's advice of just, over fueling to compensate for burning more and making sure you're staying super hydrated and just like running at a pace that makes sense. Like if it feels hard, slow down. Like don't try to like
Yeah.
ram it through because then you'll just be just burning the matches.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had no, obviously your endurance bank goes deep, lots of deposits in that thing. So I wasn't too worried about like getting it done, so to speak. But yeah, I kind of I got a new job as well, so it has been kind of a little bit of a work stress, and I know our sort of time schedules have been a little bit more crunched. Obviously, we would love to be working out way more if possible, but hey, such is life sometimes. But yeah, I had a nice little build, probably a 4 or 5 week build. It was really helpful in kind of, for me personally, kind of giving me a little bit of confidence like, hey, I can do these hard workouts or I can run these hard paces. So that was really good confidence building that Coach Liz definitely helped in supporting with. I finally remember to give her a shout out and thank her for her help during the race report instead of having to text her after like I forgot to shout you out again. But definitely Coach
Yeah,
Liz felt
I
like
also thanked Liz for getting Chipper trained up.
yes, that's a good point. But and I know this year we had talked, and Chris, you have actually been leading the majority, if not all, the swims and some of the races that you've been doing. And so we had been talking, and at Folsom we kind of switched off. I think this race, we know that strategy is a good one for us, but because of the 5 miles of swimming, I mean, there was no swim shorter than 800, and the longest swim was 2,200. So a
It's
significant
like a
amount of
35
swimming.
minute swim. Yeah, for sure. And I think that's where it was just like, yeah, I think switching off, if it was needed, it would have been fine. But I think given our sort of disparities, certainly in terms of swim fitness, like I haven't been able to put in more than a 3,000 yard swim just time wise for the last couple months. My longest swims were like at Mackinac, like last month type of thing, or
Yeah.
2 months ago, whenever that race was. And yeah, so I think our strategy going in was like obviously like let's keep it extra chill going into swim
Yes.
one because usually that's where your heart rate will really spike is on the swim. On the run you can just kind of like breathe it out, but on the swim that's where you can really just pop it. And I remember again having done Chipper and you did the 70.3, but when we did Tahoe, whatever year that was,
Yeah.
2016,
20.
it's a
Oh
long
man,
time
that's a
ago.
while ago.
The hardest part was the swimming. Swimming at elevation, that's the one that kind of really gets you. Was as Lars Vananger mentioned in the pre-race, it's like breathing through a straw while you're swimming. So that's one where it was like knowing Chipper's, my deep base of working with Chipper, racing with Chipper, was like I know that you like to kind of like put your stamp on that first swim.
Yeah.
And I told you, well, for this one, I think it makes more sense to just kind of ease into it and just kind of like gradually build it up rather than just like,
Yeah. And a phrase that we use, keep it in your pants. That for the first couple legs, that's really the mindset that I was having. And even to on that first run, I literally in my head, I'm like, wow, I'm feeling very slow. But that's okay because we knew
yeah.
it was gonna come. We
See, and
knew, the
yeah.
race is
And for
coming.
me, it was like
No, no sweat.
I'm feeling very slow, and my heart rate feels very high.
Yes.
It's like sort of the
Yes.
theme of that, basically the start of that race. I think going
Absolutely.
into that, we knew what we wanted to do from a fueling plan. We knew what we were going to do from a communication plan, and just being realistic with what we were bringing to the table, which I think was helpful, and just overall, just kind of wrapping our heads around how we're going to handle this race, especially because it's a first year race. Things can happen. Everything's ish. It all seems like a good idea until you actually do the race. Trust Lars and Aaron and everyone who helped design the course implicitly. But as racers, it's like, all right, well, we got to make sure we're calibrating our effort for whatever's coming. And we don't not really sure what's coming. It can be tricky. That's why,
Yeah.
Chipper, you did a really good job of just like looking at the course map, trying to get a sense of the distances, compensating for the emails we were getting about changes in the course that maybe are made they're supposed to happen, this
Or
didn't
maybe it
happen,
didn't
or,
happen.
or
It's
maybe
yeah.
didn't happen. But I think that was really helpful because that homework, which we always recommend, it's like, hey, you're doing a race, like study it. Like that's one thing that's within your control. I think that actually really helped us because even though we never raced there, looked at it on a map and stuff like that, wherever we were, I felt like we had a good sense of where we were, comes sort of like geospatially on the course.
Absolutely. And that's an area, and even the paddle hieroglyphics, we don't have to get into gear right now, but wrote all the legs down, reviewed the map, kind of going over, I would be like, hey, Chris, look at this and kind of show you. I felt myself, I did a little bit more studying than I kind of normally did. And that definitely helped give me more confidence and kind of make me feel a little bit better that I kind of knew what was happening during the race, which
Yeah.
is just a better way to race. So I should just remember to do that every time instead of
But
winging
but
it.
I get
But,
it.
I
I
also
get it.
like being
Yeah. Well,
reckless.
For sure, for sure. I get it. I think for this one, what it really was, it was like there was a little bit of fear. Like, hey, it's at
Yes.
elevation. We know it's going to be hard. So like, let's like respect it a little bit more. Austin, done that race a whole bunch of times. It's
We've
like
done
we
it
know
four
what we're
times. Yeah, we
getting.
kind of.
There really isn't any fear of the unknown there of anything. It just feels so familiar that it kind of, can come back and bite you because you're not taking it seriously enough. It's all the way on that side of the spectrum. So I think given that, I think we got a good plan going in. Before we get into the leg by leg breakdown, Chipper, let's share what our gear and fueling strategy was.
So I think from a gear perspective, no secret the low tide boys are big fans of the Arc Fig wetsuit.
Oh
And
yeah.
if we can use that, we're going to use that. Now, the weather in Colorado generally seems kind of variable. It can change very quickly. And race day was shifting. If you're looking at the forecast, I think how we've come as seasoned swim runners now, the weather's going to be what the weather's going to be. If we look at the weather map 10 times the day before, that's not going to impact. It's going to be what it's going to be, and it's going to be the same for everybody. So just give it your best shot. And we committed pretty early to just racing in the VIG, despite race start temperatures at like 44 degrees, which is
Yeah.
not warm. But the high, kind of going in the mid 60s, we had the Arc VIG with the arm sleeves, our CEP kind of socks, kangaroo top, the low tide boys, paddles, keel plus. One thing I did
Hmm.
add that I really enjoyed is the halo, the Arc Halo, because it was a little bit cooler and we were just kind of sitting in the car before the race, trying, just staying warm. So we weren't staying outside in the 44-degree weather, just kind of getting cold. I put that on. It was just like a nice warm hug around my ears, kept the front of my head and everything. I'm going to use this thing more often. And I kept it on for the first couple until the first couple legs, and then I just stashed it away. I don't, and it's so small you kind of forget, but it did help me keep a little bit warmer, like hold off any slight little chill that I would have gotten. The Vig for us was the suit, and I wore the Carbon Arc'teryx, whatever they're called, the Carbon
Yeah.
Adidas
Speed.
trail
Yeah.
shoes,
The Agravic
the
Speed
Gravic,
Ultras.
yeah, and the
Yeah,
float.
yeah, yeah, I'm still using the old school, because I just have like six pairs of them I got to get through before I start moving to newer stuff. But yeah, and then a mini pro tip. Yes, it was cold in the morning. Well, what keeps you warm? Zipping your suit up, having arm sleeves on, and putting your swim cap on. So we had our swim cap on for like 40 minutes before the race, just because it's a great way to like save some
Yeah,
heat. And yeah, so fueling, in terms of fueling. As I mentioned earlier, I was going to rely on fueling on the course. I brought a couple caffeine gels. I brought a PFH, a 90 gel for the long run, for the 9-ish mile run, that I was just going to have that during that. I brought a soft flask that was empty but pre-filled with PFH 1500 for that long run. And then,
same.
yeah, only brought a couple of 30 gels, PFH 30 gels, because I knew they were going to have them on the course. So, like, first aid station, I would just grab whatever I would think I would need until I got to the next aid station. And one of the things that we agreed upon, Chipper, was every aid station we were going to drink a couple, maybe like 500 cc's of electrolyte drink and take a gel. Even
Yep.
if it's like half a gel, just take the bonus gel at the aid station and make sure that we were hydrating, really focusing on hydration, which I think throughout the day, that could have been a thing that would have called us out, especially during later in the course or later in the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And the night before, we were doing our 1500 preload, had our 1500 drink on the drive there. And yeah, that strategy of, and this is where, again, I think maybe the theme of the thing is, hey, we're finally seasoned swim runners. Coming up, Chris, bang the gel, take the fucking gel. Let's go. Let's go. When we were going
Yeah.
up, I'd rip it. I'd pass Chris one. I would started jamming
I was
these
like, it was so
in.
deluxe. I was getting like chippers
I was
are
like, here you
serving me
go,
like an
little.
open. It's like, here you go, buddy. I'm like, thanks, man.
I'm just trying to take care of you. I know you had shit to do. So yeah, bang these gels down. And yeah, I wasn't getting all 30 grams out of them, but I would say I got probably 20. So I had two gels for the first couple aid stations bonus. I also had the rolled up flask, which ended up being a really smart idea. And I think that's just something, any race over, 10 miles, I'm just going to bring the flask and fill it up just because it just makes so much sense.
Yeah. Or a more nuanced, like if you're doing a swim run where there's at least like a 6 mile run or like a 10K type run,
Yeah,
Flask is great. It's such a great opportunity for you to make sure you're topping off. Again, if you're in a wetsuit, you might not even perceive you're wet. You might not perceive that you're sweating or that you're leaching electrolytes. So it's just a good thing to just kind of like stay topped off, just as you want to do on fueling. I'm with you, Chipper. In fact, during the race, I was thinking, it's like, hey, you know what? I'm going to bring the soft flask for Austin for that,
definitely.
for that 5 mile run, just so like, hey, this is just such a good opportunity to
Why
kind of
not?
like fill the tank up.
Yeah. And, plus one race director points to Lars and the team. Great aid station placements. One aid station you went
Yep.
through a couple times, and our good friend Sarah was there, and some other Colorado triathletes who were volunteering. So shout out to you all there.
Hmm.
But it was right before that 8 mile, or it was probably what, like a mile and a half into that 8 mile run.
Yep.
So it was great before you literally like started climbing up, fill your bottle up, grab another gel, get your shit together, and then go off and hit the hills kind of thing. So the aid stations were like chef's kiss on those. So great job, ÖTILLÖ team,
Yeah, for sure.
on that piece.
For sure. Yeah. And then in terms of kind of like my deployment of caffeine strategy throughout the race, I brought two caffeine gels and I ended up only taking one like before the start. Or I'm sorry, I took one before the first swim because I felt like my heart rate was already elevated. I'm kind of paranoid about like, because I don't tolerate caffeine really well. So I had a second one that was just going to be like, in case of emergency break last kite
Yeah,
type
break.
situation. But yeah, ended up not taking it, and it was like the only gel I had on me at the finish line.
Yeah, I had a PFH 30 100 milligram calf before. That was my 15-minute before one. And then I have been enjoying these SIS beta fuel. They have like nootropics or some shit in there. I don't know if I believe that stuff or not, but 40 grams, 40 grams of,
Solid advertisement for got some
sorry,
shit in there.
sorry, SIS beta fuel,
It's
but
sports and science or some
it's
shit,
sports and science, some shit like that. But anyway, it does have 200 milligrams of caffeine and 40 grams of carbs. So
Jesus.
that's the go-go juice that I told Chris when we got out of the swim on the 8 mile run before we got to the aid station. I'm like, here comes the go-go juice. We're fucking giddy up on this with 200 milligrams of caffeine. So I had that as well. So I have been liking those gels, and I can handle that amount of caffeine as well. If you're wondering how caffeine can impact you, it actually is a performance enhancer. Precision Fuel and Hydration has tons of great content on that. I want to
Hmm.
say the range is somewhere between the daily range that's recommended is like 500 to 600 grams of caffeine, milligrams of caffeine. So I had 300 plus my one or two coffees in the morning. So I was kind of at where I normally am
Yeah.
during the day anyway. But that's how I used the caffeine during the
Nice.
race.
Nice. Yeah. So that basically brings us to our leg by leg breakdown. So the race started promptly at 8 in the morning. All the legs started at the same time, and it was clearly marked where the experienced folks were going to go and
Yeah.
where the sprint people were going to go. In our category, the men's category, there's only 12 teams and about 35 solo people. So there was certainly a lot of solo people, fewer teams, but the race went off without a hitch. National anthem, Voice of Swimrun was there. It was great. We got let out on this. It was about almost like a 2-ish mile run heading towards the first
Yeah.
swim. And Chipper, as we already alluded to, like my heart rate was already, we did a warm up run for about a mile, just kind of like moving some
Yeah.
blood around, warming up, like
It was
literally just
actually
trying to
like,
warm.
let's get warm because we had been
Yeah,
sitting
yeah.
in the
It
car.
was
It was
like we need
cold.
to warm up.
Yeah, we need to warm up.
But yeah, that first run, like I was like, oof, I feel like this is going to be a long day because I feel like I'm already breathing heavier than I would want to.
That thought was coming in my head as well, and I was like, no, just keep going, kind of stuff. And I know we had been a little bit concerned, and part of that, the first run, especially with all three races starting at the same time, that first swim was going to be like a real kind of choke point. It could be a real, goggle smash and paddle smashing situation, but that ended up not really being the case at all. You kind of go out to a nice wide beach essentially,
Mhm.
so everyone can kind of choose their own adventure. So I think we probably spent too many worry cycles, like, oh, what are we going to do on the swim? But in my head, it was really just
Yep.
like I was thinking that when we hit that first swim, the water was just great the whole day.
All day.
It was, probably mid 60s, probably 64, 65, somewhere around there. It was just really nice. And all the swims, I just was thinking zone two, and just kind of
Hmm.
like keep it back. I have to let go and release the Seabiscuit complex of people are allowed to pass me on the swim. I don't have to take it personally. And I look over and here
I don't
comes
think a
someone
lot of
just,
people did. I
yeah,
don't think a
no,
lot of
no,
people did, but
not a lot of people did, which, back pat for myself. But I see someone coming up on the side of me. I'm like, okay. I'm like, this is it, Tripper. You don't have to go ballistic and like blow your race up right here. It was Mara and Andy came through, and I said, totally acceptable. I accept this passing. Please head right through and let me try to grab some feet, but that didn't last too long. So we just carried on. The first one was like 800, and I felt like our transitions in and out, high
yeah, I
marks.
think our
I give us an A
transitions.
on those, tidy.
Yeah, I think our transitions all day were really tidy. We started kind of the process, the transition process pretty early on. Pull buoy out, gels and goggles sealed up and everything else.
Yeah,
That first swim, going into that, yeah, I think we had decided it's like, hey, we're not going to try to blow a match on the first run and try to get ahead of some sort of bottleneck because it's like we didn't even know if there's a bottleneck, like, we don't know what's going
yeah,
on. So it's much better to just like, hey, let's keep it super conservative. Let's keep the effort in check, even on that first swim, because it's a super long day. And also looking ahead, like we had this 2,200 yard, mile and a half type swim
yeah,
that was looming. So we want to make sure it's like, hey, that's some serious swim run business right there. It made no sense to go into that thing just like already kind of drained or shoulders burning or anything else, or feeling like you're already exhausted from overexertion from just like having to deal with elevation. So I thought that swim went great, super straight line. You led that swim again. The plan was it's like, hey, you're going to lead most of the swims, and then
yeah,
depending on what's happening, I'm willing to take one. But I knew that the sort of 8 to 10% savings that I would get in your draft, like that was going to be really helpful just for our overall speed.
definitely.
Um, so yeah, so we finished that first swim, get out. We passed like, a decent amount of teams. Already started feeling like we're getting seated. Didn't take too long to kind of be in like no man's land. By the time we got to the second swim, that's where it was like, okay, already it's like, okay, it's our day out here. We're just gonna do our thing. We might
Yeah,
see people, we might not see people. Like who knows what's gonna happen. That's where I sort of felt like we entered the portal because it was back into like, all right, Chipper, like let's do this kind of thing.
yeah. Coming out of that first swim into run two, it was up a hill. And that's where I really started feeling the impact of the elevation. I was like, climbing, huffing and puffing, and the elevation, I was like, oh, that kind of started getting me. I was like you said, this could be a long day on this 8 mile run if this is what's happening for a 1 mile run. But yeah, we were kind of mixing it up with Will and Joe and some other folks as well. So it was cool to race around with them for a few legs there. I was, you know, first swim 800, then a mile run, and then a 1400 swim, and then another little mile point two run. Like that kind of stuff was happening. And then we hit, and the trails are really kind of single track, really nice. The first little bridge that we passed in the morning actually had ice on it. Did you see that? And did you hear me? I was
Hmm.
like, there's ice on here. Like it could get real squirrely on that thing. I certainly wouldn't want to go down on that, but beautiful trails, just kind of that granite rock around there, some cactuses, but nothing too. Reminded me of Austin a lot.
Yeah,
That
yeah, it
type of kind of
certainly
hill
felt
country.
like certainly felt like kind of like a random place to be swim running, to be honest. It's like, hey, we're running on like mountain trails, like dirt
Yeah,
trails and stuff. And yeah, there's a reservoir on our right, on our left, or these like mountain ridges, which, oh, by the way, we're going to be hitting those too. So yeah, again, it's like we mentioned at the beginning, but it's just like kind of just like the epic slash random places that swimming can take you where, you know, only with like the swim run lens do you see this and you're like, hey, this would actually be a pretty cool spot. And sure enough,
yeah.
it really was. It really was. But leading into that the really meat and potatoes
The
swim, this
2200
2200
swim.
swim,
Yeah,
I mean, it was going into it, we decided that I was going to lead. I was going to take the swim for what do we say, like the first 10 minutes or like 800 yards or
yeah.
something.
Yeah, it was. I don't remember why. I think because I was kind of feeling a little bit elevated on the heart rate, and we were like, "Yeah, Chris, you lead out." I'm like, "You let me know. You just go until you don't feel like going anymore, and I'll take the
Mhm.
rest," sort of thing. And then we went in, and so I think that was good, and that was like an audible kind of on the fly that we did. It was helpful for me to kind of get
For
bring
sure.
everything back down, and it did feel good. And all the swims were like swim out of the cove, swim along the shore, swim back into another cove. Like that was
Yeah,
pretty much
not
what the
not
swimming
technical.
was.
There wasn't a lot of current yet.
Yeah.
A
Ooh, spoiler alert.
foreshadowing for the last punch in the balls type swim. But yeah, so I led that out, and you know, I have been doing some swimming, and I have been leading
Yeah.
basically every race I've done without you. I've led every single swim. So
You
there was
somebody
some.
down, you swam somebody down, and you pass them. And in the back, I'm like, this motherfucker with his, oh, I can't swim and all this bullshit.
Well,
I'm like, he's passing people in the water.
well, you
This is
know what?
nonsense.
Well, you know what? I mean, you're not the only person in the Seabiscuit complex, and I saw this. It was a solo long course person who was just kind of
Yeah.
like out there, and I don't know if it was a he or she, but they're pretty far out. And I was like, I'm gonna. As soon as I started swimming, I was like, oh, I'm making ground. I was like,
Yeah.
in my mind, I'm like, watch this, Chipper.
You're like, like
Chipper's gonna like
reeling them
this.
in. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
past that person, caught another team, and I was just going because I'm like, I don't know how much time has gone, but this is a super long swim, so I'm just gonna go until Chipper tells me that I'm like slowing up or something. And at some point, you just like tap my feet, and I was like, I could have kept going, but I was
yeah.
like, all right, dude, take it over, Haas.
I was going back there and I was checking my watch because I had my lap timer. And I was like, oh, he's about to hit 10 minutes here. And I was trying to think, like, okay, 22 would take us. I'm like, this is like a quarter or like a third of it ish. So that's kind of
Hmm.
why I thought to do that. Yeah, we actually kind of made that transition pretty smoothly there. What we didn't even really stop it, just kind of came around,
Yeah.
and the swims are amazing. I had a great time on the swims, and something I really liked. I don't know if you felt you were able to do this, Chris, when you were out front, but you could just get really long and glide and just kind of take your time and really slow everything
Hmm.
down and stay close because you didn't have to focus so much on sighting and where's the buoy
Yeah.
and currents and that stuff. It was just like you could just kind of take your time and enjoy the swims, and that's how I sought to tackle them, with the exception of one that we had to do some maneuvering on that we'll talk with in a
Yeah,
bit. But
yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I think the swims were, kind of like Austin style, like non-technical. In fact, I thought there were Austin swims are probably a little bit harder just because there's usually is some current in the Colorado River, either headwind or tailwind kind of thing. But yeah, that swim took us around 35 minutes, which is a long time to do a swim. And I think breaking it up made a lot of sense, and when we came out of that swim, we're like, okay, that's like the first sector of the race is over. Second
yeah,
sector is getting through this, getting up to and through this 8, 9 mile run. And then the last sector is just cleaning it up from there. Once you get through that 9 mile run, you have about 5, 6 miles of swim running left to do. So we finished that long swim. And I think we were both like, all right, that was good, dude. Like strong work. We're both like sort of like dapping it out as we're getting
yeah,
out of the water, transitioning out. I will say during that swim, I started getting some lower back spasms, and
which
I don't know if
was
it's just, I don't
yeah,
know if that's from just doing like a 35-minute continuous swim or something with the giant pull buoy up your butt kind of thing, or what. But getting out of that swim, I went to transition out, and I was like, okay, I need to be way more careful about my lower back here. So that was just yet another thing that I still wouldn't consider myself fully healthy, which is one of the reasons why I feel like I'm undercooked training wise. But like immediately I just communicated that to you. Okay, dude, my
yes,
back was a little smoky for these exits. I might need you to slow it up. I might even need you to help me get up just to like save kind of the strain on like, because it's always been sort of transitioning out of the water that tends to tweak my back more than anything else. But communicated that, and honestly, it really wasn't that bad after that. It was one more time where it kind of flared up a little bit, but I think it might have just been in hindsight, I think it was because that swim was just such a freaking long swim more than anything else, that just like being in that position kind of like kinked my back a little bit.
yeah. And I thought the clarity of the communication, you just letting me know, was super helpful for me. And it's like, okay, yeah. I mean, sometimes, I get excited. I'm charging out of the swims and the tether's all stretched. And if you're still trying to figure your stuff out there. So that was good. And I felt like we were just able to make these tiny little adjustments as the race went on. And
Hmm. Hmm.
hey, that
Hmm.
was something for me to kind of check in with you down the line. And you were giving me feedback on everything there. And yeah, so like the communication was really, I would almost say, one of our better races in terms of how well we communicated.
For sure.
Hey, I'm
Except
eating
for
a
you not telling
gel.
me that you took this awesome poop in the morning. Still,
Yeah,
I'm
that was
still like,
that was
that's
an
like
oversight.
unforgivable. Like
That
that
was
would
an
have buoyed
oversight.
me so much to know that you
It
took this.
was
Anyway,
like
whatever.
it was a great one.
I'll get over it. I'll get over it.
Yeah. I'm going to write a blog post about it. And that led us to that next run, I think took us to the first kind of course adjustment. Now, the way that Attila had emailed out the day before or the night before was that you were actually going to kind of go around this marina and get out, and that was going to cut a little bit off the swim, which we were like, cool, we'll swim four
Yeah.
and a half miles instead of five. And then also save you probably a half mile, maybe to a mile on the run. So we got into this swim, and there was already three or four teams in the water. And we came in, and also all the swims to start were like the sun was just blinding in your eye. I could
Yeah,
not see
right.
shit.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm
Yeah,
glad
good
there's
thing it
nothing
was,
to,
yeah, good thing it was like along shorelines because yeah, it was like sliding
yeah,
into
but
that was not good.
yeah, this swim was not along the shoreline. It was like an out and around, or that's the way that I thought it was because we had studied that. But so I go out, and there are teams that are just way further, like a swim train. There was three or four teams that were in a nice little pace line there. I'm like, man, that would be cool to
Hmm.
be a part of that. Maybe we'll try to make it over to those folks there. But I was taking a super tight line because I thought we were just going to bang it around. And they were probably, how far away do you think they were from us? 50 yards, like further out?
I don't know if it was 50 yards, but yeah, they definitely like we
They
knew
were
that you
taking a
had to get
different
to
line,
sort of like the end of the little dock area and bang a right. And they were just kind of going straight to the point where there was a volunteer on a kayak who basically like paddled past
steered them.
everyone
Yeah.
to tell everyone to like, to take a turn. So we took that real tight. In fact, almost too tight. Like you had to correct a little bit to kind of go
Yeah, I did.
around, around that little dock. And then when we started swimming straight, I kept looking to the right because I thought that's where the flag was given the course adjustment, but the flag
That's what I thought too.
was kind of like in the shade, straight ahead, and really couldn't see it to the point, Chipper, where I almost stopped you at one point just to confirm like where we were going because and then when I was about to do that, I took like, well, let me just do like before I start backseat, driving too much, like let me
Yeah.
actually lift my head up and try to find this thing. So I took like a real big, seal sticking his head out
Yeah.
kind of thing and saw the flag and it was like just like kind of the way the wind was flowing, it was kind of like it was flowing kind of weird, but I saw it and it was straight. So you must have seen it because you were heading towards it. So I just kind
I
of left you
I
left
did
left
not
left
see
you
it,
to it.
but I was swimming, and I even flipped over and started doing some backstroke, and I was like, "Do you see the flag?" I was trying to like keep going, I was trying to be fancy with it. But
It
yeah, the
was it
kayak
was pretty, it was
volunteer,
impressive.
oh, thank you. The volunteer was like, I said, "Where are we going?" And she's like, "Keep going this way. You got to keep going." I'm like, "Okay." But, I'm not stopping. I'm trying to keep progressing forward and talk and swim and breathe at the same time. And
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
finally they said, "It's over here. Just follow me." So they kind of went that way. And then I did see it up on the beach. I'm like, okay. So maybe they reverted on the course change that they had said. We also
Yeah,
kind of missed that at the briefing because we kind of rolled up to the start line like 2 minutes or 3 minutes before. So maybe they reverted it and we missed that or something. But
it's possible.
anyway, I think we took a good line there, and we ended up surpassing like three or four teams there, which was kind of cool. But we ended up giving it back a little bit later.
Yeah,
But
basically people were either super fit or from Colorado or both. And, there's nothing anything we can do about whoever passed
yeah,
us. This is
absolutely.
what it comes
And
down to.
so that after that swim was the 8 mile run. So about a mile back to the aid station, filled our bottles up, banged some more gels, high fives to everybody and the volunteers. And then
Yep,
we
took
went
our
off on
paddles
this run.
off, took our goggles off, like
Yep.
got kind of comfortable for the long run, which most of the day we just kind of had the paddles kind of like, like we're just had them on our hands
Yeah,
while
they,
we were
they weren't
running
put
or
away.
whatnot. But that run, which is, a little pro tip, which you mentioned before, you got a big run leg coming up. Actually putting your stuff away and just kind of opening things up, kind of getting ready for, getting into like run mode for a while can actually be really helpful and just like a good little reset of what's going on. Again, with swim run, you don't really feel like it doesn't, I mean, I don't feel like I ran 20,
Yeah, no
18
way.
miles or whatever. I certainly felt like I ran like 9 miles for sure
Felt like I
at one
swam
point.
5 miles though.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But yeah, for that run, like we kind of put all our stuff away. We filled up our soft flasks. kind of got organized in terms of what we were going to eat and do all that stuff, and then just really started just kind of ticking away at this incline, which was very switchbacky, pretty cool. Definitely had some, reminded us of a bunch of different types of races we've done, some
Yeah.
Orcas vibes, some ÖTILLÖ vibes,
Whistler.
some Whistler vibes, some Big Trees vibes from our backyard on
Yeah.
some of those descents. And yeah, we pretty quickly got passed by people who were basically locals, live at elevation, and were just moving extremely well. And then we were really in no man's land for a super long time. Before we started that climb, Lars told us, "Don't take this to the bank, but you guys are either in third or fourth." And we were like, "Okay, whatever that
Yeah.
means. We don't know what to do with that information. We're just trying to keep moving forward." So we kind of reverted back to old low tide boys where I started setting the pace, especially on the switchbacky stuff going up. I just kept
Yeah.
checking in with you, and we're just kind of just like, it was very measured. It wasn't very fast, but it was very consistent, and we were just kind of like ticking off like step, 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 step as we kept climbing this, kind
Yeah.
of into the forest of this ridge.
Yeah, it was good. And I think one thing for me personally that I was like, if we can limit the walking and the hiking, that's I mean, that's just like really going to help things go a lot quicker. So for me, it was like, how can I get into a pace and a rhythm that is comfortable and sustainable that I don't have to, hey, Chris, I need a walk break 30 seconds or whatever.
Mhm.
Certain like Catalina, it's kind of unavoidable. There's going to be hiking involved.
Yeah.
Orcas, there's going to be hiking. This felt pretty manageable. I think there was one or two walk breaks, and it was actually I didn't have my shit together very well in my kangaroo top. So I had a lot of things in the lower pocket. So I had like a gut that was like hanging out below my bib and it was like bouncing up and down because I had the tether and my water bottle there. It was really uncomfortable and not fun to run with. So when I asked for the walk break, I actually like reworked my thing because I didn't want to
Yeah.
trip and try to do that. But that really did help me be able to run more smoothly, not having this like belly flopping up and down of like a water bottle, two or three
Yeah.
90 gels, the tether, my goggles and stuff. It's like I
So many
needed to
90
rearrange
gels.
myself.
Yeah,
Um,
and on that run up, so our good friend Adrian Cameron, who ended up winning, the
World Series.
solo World Series distance, and just had a really threw down like a stout performance. So kudos
Bravo.
to him. He was out there a few days earlier, and at our party, he said at our pizza party, he said that he did that climb one of the days just to check it out, and he said it was actually really runnable. So if you can set a steady pace, you can actually get up it. So I mean, that was perfect intel for me, again, as a case of first impression, someone who I trust, who's obviously like a really good swim runner and a friend of ours. It was like, okay, I know that there isn't anything that's going to be unexpected for this 3 mile section. So that's where I was trying to set the pace at a place where it was a manageable heart rate, to your point, Chipper, where we weren't kind of overextending ourselves or blowing the
Yeah.
match time of thing, and just try to keep it as sustainable as possible, partly for myself. And it's like, hey, if you're still feeling great, well, that's good on you, but like I need to,
You
so
need to look
somewhat
out for yourself too.
self-preservation. It was
Yeah.
almost like it's actually a good idea for me to set the pace here because I feel like I'm the one who's a little bit more undercooked. So I thought that helped me a lot. It also gave me a lot of confidence for the second half of, we're already sort of the middle, but towards the second half of the
Yeah.
race, which was like, okay, like I'm not a total,
You still can do this.
waste.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I mean, I felt we weren't tethered, but we were moving pretty well. I mean, I was personally like, I was like, oh man, Chipper, you did a good job of running that, and you did that hill. I usually have to hike a lot of these, so I felt really good that. So it kind of gave me a little bit of confidence. I will say on at some portion of that, we kind of got in a little bit of a lower piece, and it was like we couldn't really get a good rhythm. We thought we were at the top of the hill, but it ducked down and it climbed up again. I think it just like we both kind of hit a little bit of a pissy mood, to be honest. But we
Yeah.
we
Well,
worked our way out of it.
I think it was more like at that point, we've been racing for about 4 hours, and
Yeah.
certainly, cardiac drift was kicking in where it was just
Yes, it
like
was
anytime
underway.
it started going uphill, it was just like instantly your heart rate would just kind of get jacked. And it was like, yeah, could you like power through if you know where you're going and the hill's just gonna like round off? But we just had no idea. So when it started getting like kind of hikey, I think it was a good strategy just because there was like still so much swim running left to do, and we knew we had to come down this thing, and the downhill was going to be pretty significant as well because
Yeah.
you're doing these switchbacks. At some point we're like on this ridge, and we're looking over, and like the lake is
Way down
far.
there.
It's
This is
way down
way
there.
down there. Like,
It's like
that's the
we're way down
water. We
there.
have to get back there.
It's like you have to
And
go
we're
all the
going
way
up.
there.
We both, I had a 90 in one hand and my flask in the other. And it was like jog. And then it'd be like boop, boop, sip. And then, we
Hmm.
had our
Hmm.
timers going off, just have a hit or two of the gel. It was a really good thing with the water bottle and just to kind of keep it going through that. And I think one thing, the terrain was technical and we both kind of had a couple trips and stumbles. I almost went, genitals first into a bush. Uh,
Yes.
but I had a near miss there on a second vasectomy. I think that caused a little bit of us to kind of fall off some of that rhythm and pace that we had because it was like, hey, it's going to end this day early as someone like falling straight into a tree or,
Yeah.
twisting the ankle or busting their knee up again. But we ended up making it out of that run. And, it's like, hell,
Yeah.
yeah, we have another 1400 swim coming up,
Yeah,
another Mondo swim.
another Mondo swim. So we get down, we cross the road again. We hit an aid station again where we see Matt and Sarah and a bunch of volunteers, hydrated, filled up our flight, took gels, all this stuff.
Yeah.
We started putting
We were
on
pretty
like our
cooked at that
yeah,
one.
I
We were
mean,
pretty warm.
we started putting on our arm sleeves because we thought it was only like half a mile from that aid station to the next swim. So we're like, well, let's just do this now while it's like a single track, but not
Yeah.
technical at all. It's just kind of like a sandy, dirt thing. So it seemed like a good place to be doing things that were not unlikely to trip. But it ended up being a little bit farther than that. And that's the run where I was like, oh man, I'm finally feeling like I almost to the point where I almost took the arm sleeves back off because I was
Hmm.
starting to feel real warm. And when we got to that swim, that was one where I thought it was closer than what it was, and we just kept following the markings and trusting the markings. And eventually we got to the beach,
Aaron was
or the
there
little
with the
cove.
camera.
Aaron was there, took some great photos. So thank you for capturing our good sides, Aaron. And that one was one where when we got in the water, that was the one where we kind of took like a little bit of pause. It was definitely our slowest transition, but I think
Yeah.
we both needed it just to kind of like. I mean, there was a kayaker. He's like, "You guys look really happy to get in the water." I'm like, "Do you see the steam coming off of us right
It
now?"
really,
Uh,
I mean, I was warm. I had put my swim cap on at the aid station. Like I was ready to hit the
yeah,
swim. Yeah. Cause we were thinking it was kind of like a half mile or something. It probably ended up being a mile and a half to the next swim.
yeah,
And then, yeah, getting in, the water was also really cold because we had been sweating so much. But,
yeah. But it felt so
within a
good.
hundred, it felt so nice.
It was like really, it was just restorative. It reminded me, and I
Yeah.
remember telling you this, Chipper, during the race. It's like when Andy Hewitt told us that one of the best pro tips was when you're doing the World Championship on Orna and you go to that, that bonus unsanctioned aid station, just have the guy hit you with the hose just to get wet
Oh,
again. It
yeah.
felt so great to get wet again. And honestly, it was like, in the video game where you get that extra life,
It's
definitely
like,
felt
doo, doo,
like
doo,
it was
doo.
like a one up. It's like, doo-doo. It's like we
Yeah.
got another one. And that one was fine. We definitely started that one off, I think, a little bit slower than the
Yeah.
other,
We were
like
taking
getting
that one
back
extra
into.
chill.
Yeah,
And I started to feel because it had been, 8 miles. We climbed 900 feet or something, six to 900
yeah,
feet. I mean, that probably took us an hour and a half. My shoulders, like lactic was in there, and it was a little bit rusty, kind of getting started. Once we got out of there, we had the 4 mile run, so the little second kind of longer run with the hill climb there. That one, I think we were kind of we didn't hit that one as good. It was a little bit of a more technical terrain, and there wasn't as
yeah.
many switchbacks. It wasn't as runnable. But once we got to the top of that, I think we kind of felt our spirits getting lifted. And I
Yeah,
think at
we
that
could hear
point,
the finish line. Yeah, at that point, that Chipper, to your point, that's the point where I thought it's like, okay, this is certainly getting done.
yeah,
Like chances of DNFing have gone really low, if not to
yeah,
zero. I mean, I guess it never goes to zero, but it felt like, hey, we've made it this far. There's no way that we can't do the last two swims and whatever's required. Yeah, I agree. I think that's where it just kind of like, it's just a long day. At that point, we've been out there for
it was
almost
like
five
five, four
hours.
and a half, 5 hours.
It was
Yeah,
a pretty big climb, and yeah,
you're
I
getting a little
skipped.
gelled out.
Yeah, I skipped one gel timing just because I was like, I need a break from this right now. Like, I felt like I've been gelling a lot, which is what you're supposed to do. But, I was kind of like, I just needed like a little bit of a gel break. And Chipper, you're really good. We're like, well, don't make that a habit. But I really just skipped like that one feeding on schedule. But
Yeah.
yeah, once we got to the ridge, we started going down. And I remember telling you, it was like, oh, I'm surprised we haven't seen, part of me was like, oh, I'm surprised we haven't seen any sort of sprint like back markers. But then I'm like, we've been out here for like 5 hours. I really hope that there is anyone out here. We did see one person, and I heard that he finished, which is awesome. That was like the sort of the only back marker that we really ended up catching. Get down. There's one more aid station. Matt and Sarah are there again.
Again,
It was
yeah.
really something.
And I think earlier in the race, you were like, hey, because to that last swim, one of the adjustments, it was going to be another 2,500 swim out around this huge cove. But they actually cut it in a little bit. And then you ran like
Yeah,
a
it was like a
quarter of a mile
600 and then a little bit of a run, kind of like over
and then
over kind of thing.
another 800 swim. And Chris, you were like, oh, I'll lead the first one. But as we were coming down, I was like, I got it. I could tell you weren't
Yeah,
really
I
in the
mean,
mood.
I was certainly, I mean, if it was required, I would have done it. I was certainly
Totally,
like
totally.
sighing a lot. I was just kind of over it, to be honest. I mean, we've been out there a long time. Again, this is the
Yeah.
longest we've done in a long time. At that point, we already crossed like 5 hours of swim running. Mackinac 2 months earlier took me about 5 hours, and that was like enough activity. I was certainly done by the end of that race. So yeah, I was certainly getting to the point where it's like, okay, like I really would like to get to the finish line, but also not trying to be out here all day, which is
Yeah.
sort of always kind of like our secret goal is to just like let's just move through this thing, get it over with on some level. So yeah, so you were like, I'll just take both swims, and I was like, hey man, that's fine. I'm not gonna. This is an ego thing. Like you want to get to
Yeah.
the finish line, let's get to the finish line, whatever way that whatever's required. So even there, I felt like the experience of, yes, our sort of a plan is to alternate swims to keep both of us fresher as we move through the course, and then have whoever leads the swim sort of lead the next run to kind of get his heart rate in check before then we decide if we're going to pick up the pace or whatnot. Big audible in this one just because of what was going on, but I think, again, it's fine. We got
It's
to
the way
that
it
first
worked out.
swim. There was no one there. There was no one around us. There was no one
Bunch
in
of
the water.
turkeys,
We're
geese.
like, where is everybody? Yeah, so we're going there trying to figure out going in. I'm like, hey, go in by the geese because it's like, maybe 50 yards shorter, thing like
Yeah, we'll
that.
save a couple
Um,
strokes.
yeah, there was like a kayaker waving at us, like, hey, good job,
Like, oh
guys, which was
yeah,
pretty
yeah.
funny. So we do that second to last swim, get onto that sort of sandbar where we're sort of cutting across this little cove. And yeah, we get into that last swim. And if this isn't just the law of the universe, that was the choppiest swim into a direct current for about what, 600 yards?
I mean, I
It was
started
like hitting
swimming.
you in
I'm
the
like,
face.
it was. I took them. I took. Yeah, it was by far the toughest swim. It was a hard swim.
The hardest swim
Chop
of the
coming
day, and it was the
on,
last.
wind coming on, and it was just like,
Yeah.
whoa! It was like hit me in the face.
It felt like an ocean swim for the first time all
Yes.
day. And it was like, we knew we just had to get to the point where we take a right into the cove and everything was going to be fine. And that's certainly
Yeah.
what happened. But I kept sighting, being like, how, because you could see there was this little kind of like rock outcropping, and the cove was kind of like right around that.
Yeah.
So Chipper, you weren't messing around. Like you were heading right. In fact,
Dude,
I
I went on
thought it
the
was like,
curbs, dude.
I was
I
like,
went
we're
right
going
up
to
on the
beach.
curb.
I was like, we're going to beach this thing. A couple paddle strokes or like scraping
Yeah.
on
Whoop.
something.
Sorry.
But yeah, that was like, I mean, anything's possible. There's nothing we say a lot. Anything is possible on the last swim. Like, you just got to do it. Just suck it
Yeah.
up and do it. And Chipper, strong work as always, made it through that turn, made that turn. And then it was like, we're
Yeah.
back to these protected
It
waters, but
was
we still
good.
have like 400 yards or something to go.
Up a hill. And there were some people there cheering. I think Aaron was there again. And I looked and I'm like, it's literally up another hill. And I'm like, I'm liking this one. I
Yeah.
don't care.
But there were some folks at the top of that hill, and one guy was like, hey, finish line's right there. This is the last thing. I don't know who this person was, an angel from heaven. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I believed him when he said that,
Yeah.
and he was right. So it was just like, all
He
right,
was
well,
right.
let's turn this corner here. And sure enough, we saw the finish line. It was a quarter of a mile or something to get to it. We finished in about 5 hours and 47 minutes or 43 minutes, which
The
was good
voice of
enough for
Swimrun brought us home.
It was good enough for fourth place men's team, again, out of 12. We're out of third place by like 5 minutes from these Colorado guys who raced awesome. I mean, they passed us on that really long run, and it was just
They were looking way too fresh.
like, bye,
Those
guys.
kids were looking sporty. Have a
Race,
good
fellas.
race.
Finish line vibes were great, but abbreviated because
Yeah.
this started like the hardest part of this race was basically trying to get back home. For some reason I was rolling it back like we do for Austin Chipper, where it's like easy, plenty of time, we have a chill lunch, then we go to the airport, fly home. This one, because it was a beefy beast of a
Almost a
race,
6 hour
uh
endeavor.
yeah, like our checkout was at 2. We finished the race about 1:45. We had to run to the car so I could call the hotel to not throw out our stuff or whatever. We had to basically board our plane at 5 p.m. So got back to the hotel, showered, got in the car, sat in traffic for some reason, made it to the airport, bought Chipper empanadas while he went to the bathroom, got on the plane. That was basically the series of events.
We It was the tightest turnaround. We made it to our
Mm,
gate 15 minutes before boarding.
yeah, it was
So I mean, we
it
had to
was not
jam out of
ideal.
there. Yeah,
It was not ideal from a
suboptimal.
stress perspective. But,
Yeah.
putting that aside, I think the finish line vibes were great.
There was a
JR was there
sauna,
kind of running the show,
cold
cold
plunge. Yeah,
plunge.
I really like how JR or someone from ÖTILLÖ is there taking a solid photo of the team or the solo person under
Yep.
the archway. I think that's a really nice photo that a lot of people really appreciate getting. So I like that they do
hmm
that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So we said bye to everyone really quickly. We unfortunately we didn't get to see some of our friends finish just because we had a
I
jam.
know.
But yeah, we heard that the last finishing team, which was my partner for Swimrun Cape
Cape
Cod,
Cod.
Emily St. Germain, she raced with Amy Bush of Team Adorkables fame, and it took them about 7.5 hours, something like that. And they actually kept the finish line open, waiting for them. So they had a whole mass of people kind of bringing them in. All the kayaks had like the personal kayaks, just kind of like bringing them home. It
They
was
had a
such a cool
police boat
moment.
come in. Did you see they had sirens and everything on the last swim? Like, oh, nice. That's a
Yeah.
good escort.
Yeah, it was cool. It was cool. Yeah, they had an awesome race, and yeah, just it was fantastic. Huge shout out to Lars, Lars's brother Aaron, Lars's dad Mark, Lars's mom Lois, Aaron and everyone else from the Attila team, JR for sure. Trista was there volunteering.
Yep.
For a first year race, things can get wonky. Marking was great, volunteers were great, everything was super
Aid
intuitive and
stations, top
obvious.
notch.
Aid stations were great. Yeah, it was just like high marks all around. Like in terms of, maybe we should just get into final thoughts, but in terms of
Yeah.
like an awesome swim run experience, this one delivered on all counts. And again, we joke about like, hey, we want these things. Like the worst thing about Austin is that it isn't longer, or like, oh, what, we got mad when we cut Casco down by like 2 miles of swim running. It's the type of thing where it's like, yeah, we just want more of it. And this one, it's like we certainly had like our nice full
We got
helping
served.
of,
We got served. Yeah.
but it was
I
awesome.
absolutely. And I would put this race at the top of the burliest and the one of the toughest swim runs on the U.S. circuit, and certainly it holds a candle to anything that you can find in Europe from a swim run perspective. So a really awesome course, tough, challenging, lots of swimming, big climbs, solid amount of running. Overall, really, really enjoyed the course. Travel easy in and out. Highly recommended for you all to sign up for the Colorado next season.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess like final thoughts, it was really interesting given that last week's episode was our first ever swim run and this one was our latest swim run,
Yeah.
just to chart like not just our journey in the sport, but the evolution of our friendship, our kids being born and being raised together, like
Yeah.
being best friends. Like, there's so many places where it all kind of like intersects in such a great way. Swim run is just one of the things that we do together as friends and family. It's so fun. I'm so glad that we do this.
We said it during one of those runs. It was like, yes, like it felt like we're back out there. We were
Yeah.
having fun. We were suffering together. We were having fun. We were joking, talking shop, catching up on all the stuff
Yeah.
that we haven't had time to catch up on at school pickups and stuff. But yeah, overall, just an amazing experience, and yeah, really stoked to lace it up again at Attila Austin in just about 4 weeks here. Still
Yep.
time to register for that one. save 10%. Low Tide Boys 10 will save you 10% off that. So register. That is probably one of the top communities there. I know there's a big turnout expected for this one, so we'll see you all at Austin. But great job to on Colorado.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
it.
that's
We
it.
did it. Done did
Cool.
it.
Rocky Mountain Way.
Rock Mountain
Indeed.
High and other things.
Absolutely. See you out there.